In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Law, I wish to state that on September the 8th, 2017, the notice of this meeting of the Upper Township Committee was posted on the official Township Bulletin Board, mailed to the Cape May County Gazette, the Atlantic City Press, the Ocean City Sentinel Ledger, the Herald Times, and filed with the Township Clerk. Tonight's meeting is being video recorded up until the closed session portion of this meeting and will be available on UTTV Channel 97 and on the Upper Township website. I hereby direct that this announcement be made a part of the minutes of this meeting. Now I ask all to rise for the salute to the flag. And remain standing after that for a moment of silence for 9/11. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So would someone like to approve the minutes from the August 28th regular and closed session minutes?
He's going to call the roll first.
Mr. Barr?
Here.
Mr. Coggins?
Abstain.
Oh, wait. No, this is a roll call. Sorry.
Oh, here. I thought we were calling the roll for the...
I know.
Mr. Corson?
Present.
Mr. Young?
Here.
Mayor Colombo?
Here.
All members are present.
Now, would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes from both the regular meeting and the closed session minutes?
Motion to approve. Second.
Is there any corrections, omissions, deletions that anyone's aware of?
Mr.
Hearing
Barr?
none, please.
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Abstain.
Abstain. Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Colombo?
Yes.
Motion is carried with 4 in favor and 1 abstention.
Okay, so we are at this time going to forego the report of the governing body members. We have a couple presentations to do this evening, and then we'll go back to the report of the governing body members that will probably address some of the other folks that are here as well. So, having said that, the first resolution that we have honors Charles Anthony Adelizi. And I'll read the resolution. I'll ask I think Mrs. Adelizi and her son, would you guys like to come up, please? For those of you that don't know Charlie Adelizi, he was a very dedicated veteran who literally took care of all the Memorial Day services in the township, took care of Veterans Day services in the township, and an individual that cared greatly for our veterans and those that are serving the military at present time, past time. He always had a knack for telling about the history of those that have served over the years, and was very dedicated not only on Memorial Day, but on Veterans Day and any service that would recognize those that have given, so freely of their lives in the military and of life itself. So we'd like to read this in his honor. He left us earlier in the year, and we just really felt it was befitting to honor him. So the resolution reads, whereas the Upper Township Committee was deeply saddened to learn of the death of Charles Adelizi, an inspirational individual who tirelessly served our community for many years by generously donating his time to numerous community and charitable organizations. He was born in Summers Point on September 29, 1938. Charles graduated from Ocean City High School in 1956, and after earning his BA in German literature from Rutgers University in 1962, he joined the United States Army and served with the Army Security Agency in Vietnam. Following his Army service, Charles worked for the Cape May County Department of Health as a health inspector for 33 years, and for the Cape May County Veterans Bureau as director and intermediate officer for 12 years. Whereas as a Vietnam veteran, Charles was a member of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the VFW, serving as commander of the Fraser Ross Sac Watchco Post 8695 in Marmora for 3 decades. He was recognized as an all-state commander on several occasions, with 2017 being the most recent, and as an All-American commander in 2003. Whereas as a proud member of the American Legion Post 239 in Tuckahoe and the Vietnam Veterans of America, Commander Charles led the veterans and Boy Scouts each Memorial Day and Veterans Day in services at many local cemeteries and memorials, and was involved in raising funds every year for disabled and ailing veterans. Whereas in addition, Charles was an active and faithful member of the Trinity United Methodist Church in Marmora, where he served as a Sunday school teacher and a Sunday school superintendent, and diligently assisted with the Upper Township Food Pantry. Whereas Charles will always be remembered for being a devoted husband and a kind father, gentle man of character and dedication, and faithful consciousness in service to others. It is just and deserving that on behalf of the residents of Upper Township, we honor and celebrate the inspiring life of our fellow citizen and friend Charles. Now therefore be it resolved by this Township Committee, join with all citizens of our community to pay tribute to an exemplary life and tireless service of Charles Anthony Adelizi, and do hereby extend to Charles' family our most heartfelt sympathy for their loss and the hope that they will be consoled by the memories of his fine life and achievements. So let's give a round of applause. Yes, you can. Absolutely.
I would just like to thank Mayor Colombo. One of my long-lasting memories that I will cherish forever is the last Memorial Day when Mayor Colombo made a point of calling out Charlie and thanking him for over 2 decades of being involved in the Memorial Day services. And at the time, Charlie and I discussed it, and he said, well, he didn't really need to do that. And I said, no, he didn't, but he wanted to. And I don't know why you said it at that particular Memorial Day, but you did. And that's deeply appreciated. And I really want to thank you for recognizing Charlie when he was alive and could hear the words the day before he was struck with his tragic stroke. So thank you. And my son Eric might want to say a word or two.
Well, just that I remember being here almost 2 years ago, I guess, when he was honored by the Rotary as Citizen of the Year. And it was great for him to be here and be honored for all of his work. And thank you for similarly honoring him here in Virginia and city members.
And that becomes a permanent record of the township records forever. So it's well deserved. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Now it's time to address and recognize all the ladies in pink tonight. So the one thing this township has, the committee has always done, is recognize when our sports team do a good job and accomplish something that is unique, because we always feel that our youngsters that are involved in our sporting events are goodwill ambassadors for the township. And so it's really important for us to recognize them. We're very happy with what they've done. And on top of it, in an age where a lot of kids are spending time at home and, on Facebook, or maybe that's archaic, but whatever it is they're on with smartphones and everything else, it's nice to see our young ladies and men achieve things in sports and to be recognized for that. So I'm gonna read the resolution, and as we go along, I'm gonna ask my colleagues, if you would. pass it out to the girls. And I will do the best I can with the names. So, as I call your name, would you come up, please, to be recognized? So, whereas the Upper Township Girls Major Division Softball Team had an outstanding 2017 season. In June of 2017, the team participated in the 2017 Little League Girls Softball Major Division New Jersey District 16 Championship games, where they decidedly won Game 1 and Game 2 on a 3-game series to clinch the championship for their division. And whereas it is appropriate that on behalf of the citizens of Upper Township, we recognize and congratulate the players listed as follows. Natalie Argento, Veronica Frost, Molly Hack, I hope I said that right, Katie Larson, Devin Muir, Alexa Wheely, Eva Kreger, Callie Grimley, Abby Larson, Marley Lynn, and Taylor Robinson. All right, so girls, you're going to have to help them because they don't know who you are. Their names are on the... I'll continue to read the resolution. So to finish the resolution, whereas we also extend this recognition and thanks to Julia Steelman, Tracy Cook, and Kelly Cook, who has generously given their professional time and service to coach the team. The Township Committee, on behalf of the citizens of the Township of Upper, to extend to the Upper Township Girls Softball Major Division team congratulations on becoming the 2017 Little League Girls Softball Major Division New Jersey District 16 champions. That's a lot to say. So, congratulations, girls. Where's Tracy? Tracy Cook. I have that one. So, girls, we need to get a picture so you get in the newspaper. I might stand up here. I think I'm in better shape up here. Good timing. There wasn't a lot of pictures. So girls, congratulations. Hope you have another successful year coming up. And I know you're all back in school, so I know you got to go home and do homework and stuff, right? No homework? All right, well, we're going to let you go anyway, so you don't have to stay. Thank you all for coming, the parents. Good job. Have a great night.
Good job,
Good night.
Jen. How's this next hurricane looking? It's gonna do a button hook out there, I guess. And then there's another one brewing, isn't there? Cool.
What's that?
We got 3 more coming our way. We might get lucky.
Don't say that.
Rich will have a double header.
I mean, I have to go down there sometime, but right now there's no electric or
Yeah, where are you going to
go? So I'm going down there with no electricity. It's like 95 degrees down. Okay, so now that we've had the presentations through, we're going to move on with the agenda. We're going to do the reports from the governing body. I'm going to go this way, and I know when I get to Dan, we're going to address some issues that I know have some concerns from our Strathmere residents. So, Scott, what do you have for us?
Good evening, Mayor and Committee. Just one thing tonight. I started off the last two committee meetings with items referencing emergency management. I just thought it was appropriate tonight with everything that's gone on over the last 3 weeks between Texas and now our friends and loved ones down in Florida. But I just wanted to remind everybody that September is National Preparedness Month. And just to keep in mind with all the destruction and things that we see down there in both Texas and Florida, that it's very important to make a plan, emergency plan for those who are elderly, disabled, for pets, in addition to your families. Assemble an emergency kit and also research where you live, the alert and warning systems that may be in your area. And learn your evacuation zones and have an evacuation plan if you are told by the local authorities to evacuate. And of course, check your insurance coverage, document your property, whether it be through video or pictures. And there's things called thumb drives, which you can put all that information with you from your computer system and have it with you, that if you are hit, it's easy access for your insurance carrier to provide them with all the information before any type of a natural disaster strikes.
And a list of your medications.
Absolutely.
Because that is a huge issue right now in both Texas and it's beginning in Florida already.
Correct. And all those things that I just mentioned, they are on our website, www.uppertownship.com/OEM. And all that information is provided, including your evacuation zones from Upper Township. So let's just hope and pray nothing like that comes to visit us. But if it does, let's make sure we're all prepared. Mayor?
Okay, thank you. Barbara?
I just have one item. I'd like to move item number 10 on the agenda to after item number 15 on the agenda, which is the ordinance for use of facilities, and item number 10 pertains to the Fall Fest to be held at Mansfield. So if we could just move that item until after item number 15, I'd appreciate that. And that's all I have this evening, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So Daniel, you're next up.
Okay.
I know that there are a bunch of issues. First, do you have anything beyond what we're going to talk about with the Strathmere folks?
There are a handful of items for closed session. We have litigation, contract negotiation, and personnel items for closed. But otherwise, you and I talked about it, and I thought it was appropriate because we heard the folks from Strathmere coming. And also, I had numerous comments and inquiries at my office in the last week and a half about some emails that were sent out and information regarding our pending flood damage control ordinance. And if you bear with me, I would like to walk through some of the history and some of what's going on and maybe clear up some of the misconceptions that are out there.
And I just want to add, although we have Dr. Farrell here with us who will also help as an expert contributor. And we normally don't have any public comment till the public comment portion of the meeting. But after we get through this, if some of you individuals have some questions, we're going to allow we're going to have some latitude tonight. So we're going to change the whole thing around so that everybody's clear as to what's going on.
Can everybody hear?
Okay. So Dan, would you I'm going to turn it over to you to do some of the research, and I'm sure Dr. Farrell can
Just to
add
give
something.
some background on where we are. We introduced the flood damage control ordinance. It was actually an amendment to our existing ordinance, and that's set for public hearing and final adoption on September 25th. That's our meeting on September 25th. And frankly, after all the inquiries and questions that came in the last week and a half, there's a fair amount of inaccurate information or incomplete information out there. The biggest issue is the coastal A zone. It's a designation in the flood maps. In order to understand it, the Township Committee is probably well aware of it, but for the edification of everybody else, I'd like to go through a little bit of history on how that came to be. First of all, after Superstorm Sandy, FEMA released advisory maps. Those maps were based on incomplete data. Many previous A-zone properties were designated as V-zone properties. We all knew it when we looked at it. It's not just Strathmere that it occurred. It occurred in Ocean City, all the barrier islands up and down the coast. A V-zone requires a stricter construction standard as it is considered a more high-risk area, V for velocity, wind velocity. Upper and other municipalities, excuse me, were very concerned about the proliferation of the V-zones. And we knew that the maps weren't accurate because they weren't based on complete data. Dr. Farrell from the Stockton Coastal Research Center was hired by the township as well as, I believe, Cape May and Atlantic County to review those maps because they were undergoing revision. And he was hired to confirm that the zones are appropriate. What they end up with is appropriate for not just Cape May and Atlantic County, but also for Upper. FEMA issued revised maps, and many of those V-zone properties were moved back to the A-zone. In those revised maps, there's a thing called LIMWA. It stands for Limit of Moderate Wave Action. If you look at the maps, there's a little triangle line. And that is an A-zone property, but it's generally along the V-zone border, okay? That LIMWA line now designates what's known as the coastal A-zone. FEMA recommends, but it doesn't require more strict standards for construction in that LIMWA coastal A-zone area. Those strict standards are the V-zone standards for construction. Upper Township, as well as all the other municipalities up and down the coast in Cape May and Atlantic County, they accepted that line, given that it was only a FEMA recommendation. But here's the kicker. After the expiration of the appeal period for those maps, which everybody in all the municipalities, coastal municipalities in our two counties agreed was okay, after the appeal period expired to appeal those lines and those maps, the state of New Jersey changed the building code, changed the construction code. And what they said was, we know FEMA only recommends that you build to the stricter standards, and it was up to you guys whether you wanted to municipality by municipality adopt ordinances that way. We're going to require it. The state of New Jersey in their construction code now requires, it was in the last year, that if you build in a coastal A, you have to meet the stricter standards. So it's taken out of our hands. It's still, by the way, only a recommendation for FEMA. FEMA recommends it. You can get higher credits, more credits for your rating for flood insurance and whatnot, but you don't have to do it. And most of the municipalities didn't do it. Didn't do that ordinance before the state required it. We asked Dr. Farrell to be here to add some more detail and confirm the situation. Again, you should understand that LIMWA line, it's based on an analysis of the particular geographic area, and that includes bulkhead height. So what you would have to do is look at that area to see whether that map is correct. We can appeal that line. You can appeal that line. There's a process for it. I spoke to an attorney that did, that we can recall one of the few successful appeals of a LIMWA line. It was down in Avalon Manor, and it takes about a year, but you have to have good scientific data behind it. In other words, you got to go in and you got to prove that the bulkhead heights and whatnot are protecting that area. The pending flood control ordinance has to be adopted by October 5th. We have it scheduled for the 25th. If we don't, we jeopardize our continued eligibility in the National Flood Insurance Program, which means you guys wouldn't have flood insurance or your rates would go sky high. It has to be. That's a statewide requirement. Everybody's doing it. If you look at all the municipalities, you look in the paper, you'll see they're all adopting it. So we have to adopt that on the 25th. I received a copy of an email that was sent by Riordan Real Estate to Strathmere residents. It was one of the residents that sent me a copy of it. Unfortunately, it contains statements that were inaccurate, and frankly, some of them were misleading by the way they were characterized. I just want to note so you're aware of it. An A-zone designation in no way affects your flood insurance and premiums for current housing. Your grandfather. It's only a construction code issue. It only affects the construction standards for new or significantly rehabilitated remodeled houses. I spoke to our risk management consultant, Tom Heist, who's an expert in flood insurance issues, and he confirmed that. He's been on a series of panels that reviewed it. So the statements that it's going to make your flood insurance go up because your property is not inconsistent with those standards are just not true. That's not true. Now, I can't guarantee you any future law, but right now, the way it's set up, the way the flood insurance law is set up, you're grandfathered, just like everybody else in the United States is grandfathered, even if they don't have a V-zone or a coastal A-zone constructed house. It was inferred that Ocean City and Seattle did some actions that Upper Township did not do. Again, I don't believe that's accurate. Ocean City and Seattle accepted the A-zone designations just as Upper did for the same reasons Upper did, because at that time it was optional. The appeal period expired, and then the state changed the law. That's when we have a problem with it.
So Seattle and Ocean City have accepted this already?
They accepted the A zones because, well, Seattle doesn't have as many coastal A as Upper does, nor Ocean City. There was a reference to Ocean City not having as many, but I talked to Ocean City. My office is in Ocean City. I represent the Ocean City Board of Realtors. They were equally concerned as you folks about their property values and what buyers and sellers are going to have to deal with. Ocean City has, as the way it was explained to me, I don't get to do an inventory, but their solicitor said a couple hundred houses that are going into the coastal A. So they're in the same situation. You have, I can tell you that from the yacht club in Ocean City down to 5th Street along the bay, that now used to be A, now it's coastal A. The area in Bay Landings, if you know Ocean City, 34th Street, the houses behind the church there, that is now going to coastal A. You go to the south end, closer to Strathmere, the area that's down the Ocean City Homes section, Dory Drive, those houses are going into the coastal A. So they have the same issue that we all have. And they would have to prove the same thing about the geography of the land and the scientific data if they were to move that. Ocean City hasn't taken any action on that yet. I don't know if they will. The number of Strathmere properties moving to the coastal A zone from the A zone is about 40, according to a calculation by our township engineer, not the 80 to 100 that was reported. There are some properties that were in the V zone in Strathmere that are now going to the coastal A. I don't know if that was the confusion. There's another statement in some of these emails, I don't think this came from the real estate office, that the township didn't tell anyone about this and did this without public input. I can't speak for the planning board, but prior to the introduction of the flood damage control ordinance last month, the township committee discussed the flood maps at least 6 different township committee meetings in public. Paul and I started discussing when I discovered what happened with the coastal A zone. He and I started discussing that in the spring and the problem, and he did an inventory of the houses that were being affected. Now, with that stated, I hope I dispelled some of the issues. It doesn't make it perfect for you guys, but that's the facts as we know them. We can talk to Dr. Farrell. I mean, he's welcome to add anything to what I said if it's not accurate or needs to be supplemented, if you would.
Mr. Young's assessment is essentially how we determined it to be as a result of the state changing the building code rules in 2017. The municipal appeal inventory of the maps went from late 2015 and ended in 2016. There were many appeals filed. Some were successful. Seattle City appealed a V-zone and a limited wave modification in the oceanfront properties, one house inland. They were all both V-zone and coastal A-zone properties. FEMA had failed to take into consideration a double timber bulkhead underneath the asphalt promenade from 29th Street down 54th Street that had been built after the 1962 Northeastern. In front of that was a revetment of rock, all buried in the sand completely. Very few people even knew it was there, much less the folks at FEMA who mapped from the air. They mapped Cape County in 2008 from the air using LiDAR data, which is millions of data points of elevation flying over the coastal part of the county. So that's what went into making the elevation maps that we live with. The appeal processes did, see, the advisory maps had everything as a B zone that was 3 foot of water or greater if we have the 100-year flood. So on the ground, if you had 3 foot of water or greater, it was a B zone when those advisory maps came out. Well, what wave is going to go through 50 houses and break on the house next without dissipating? They said, okay, yes, we didn't do the overland wave modeling. Oh, okay, but that was made the rule as an advisory for future new house construction. That kind of really blew up in the administration's face in New Jersey, and those advisory V zones were pretty much eliminated. And the limb law, or limited moderate wave action, is a 1.5 foot wave. That's what's defined as. And a 1.5 foot wave breaks in 2 feet of water. So the bulkhead has to be less than 2 feet lower than the base flood elevation in order to stop that wave from hitting the house. The bulkhead height then in the coastal A9 is 7.0 feet. So the top of the bulkhead must be 7.0 feet in order to essentially meet the criteria. However, that has to be all of them. So I know bulkheads are built individually and they vary in height from 4.8, 5.0 to up to 9 feet. Some people have built 9-foot bulkheads in the last 3 years. So as a consequence, getting the entire coastal bayshore completely out of the limb law is going to be A, expensive, or B, a very long process of going through what's called a letter of map revision. FEMA has an acronym for everything. It's called a letter of map revision. And basically, the individual property owner has to apply for these maps. Essentially, that period of appealing the maps was a municipal LOMAR that was being done as a kind of conciliatory step towards getting the maps reviewed and adjusted quickly, rather than have every property owner come in times 10,000, do it with municipalities for 18 months. They extended it twice, so it was 18 months total. So that's essentially how this thing evolved. None of us saw the state coming along with the new building code enforcement saying if you're going to build in the coastal A zone, you have to build the FEMA V-zone standards. That's pilings, breakaway walls. The elevation has to be first horizontal member, has to be freeboard plus 9 above the elevation. So that's what it would mean. The whole language of this is very complicated, convoluted, but that boils it down to the simplest possible situation that I can explain to you.
I would suggest, because there's so many people here, and maybe a lot of them came from different areas, that you take public comment and consider it when you do the hearing on the ordinance on the 25th. But you're still going to have to open it to public comment on the 25th before you adopt it. And I think Mr. Barr had a suggestion that if there was more detail or a lot of questions, perhaps we could set a time in Strathmere that's convenient to the residents, and maybe we could talk to a couple of the point people from the residents and send our experts to Strathmere to talk to them about it and maybe get into more detail. I don't know if that's something the Township Committee wants to consider or not.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's appropriate tonight to let individuals speak. And what I'd ask for you to do is to come up to the podium and state your name and your address, for the record, because this meeting is being videoed. And then be cognizant of the fact that there seems to be a number of folks that would like to speak. I would only ask that your questions be, specific and not necessarily repetitive, if we can do that. And that way I think everybody should have an opportunity to at least, voice their concerns or ask their questions and hopefully come away with a little bit more understanding as to, what has occurred at this point, up to this point. So I'll ask who would like to come up and address the Township Committee.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Bonsall, 712 Bayview Drive, Strathmere. I was wondering, the ordinance 013-2017 pertaining to all this was introduced and adopted, I guess, on the 28th, I believe.
No, it has not
It hasn't been adopted.
It's only introduced.
Introduced, I'm
The
sorry.
meeting for adoption is the 25th.
25th.
And everybody has to adopt it by the 5th of October, otherwise you're out of compliance for eligibility of your flood insurance.
I guess my question is, did the committee ever decide to fight this? Represented in Passaic, they had the same thing along the Raritan River. They got together and got Representative Purcell, congressman representing that area, went in and fought it and actually had it changed without producing any scientific evidence to the contrary. It was changed. So apparently it can be done. And I guess my thought is, did the committee ever at any point say, you know what, we're going to fight this? It's going to affect a number of our residents. Can't let this stand.
Well, I will say, and I think Mr. Young had pointed it out, when the original maps came out, the Township Committee was very actively involved with the opposition of what came out originally. And when we ultimately landed on, I think what was probably considered a compromise, where the requirements were more of not a mandatory but a suggestion, or what kind of word would we
Well,
say?
let me be clear. I have no idea what happened in Passaic, okay? So I can't talk to that, and I don't know the procedure, and it is complicated. I can tell you that my review of this is that the appeal period had expired for those maps for us to fight them, because there was no reason to fight them during the appeal period, because it was optional, and we did the same thing that every municipality in Cape May and Atlantic County did when they went from A to coastal A. That was, let me finish, and then the state law changed, and that, based upon my review, the only way you can do that is the appeal Dr. Farrell just referred to. In fact, I believe you were involved in the Avalon Manor appeal, and that's the year or so length of time where you do have to have scientific data. So what you're referring to, with all due respect, I don't understand and I don't know.
The committee basically was blindsided. Apparently,
Every municipality
it
was.
sounds like, but the committee here was also blindsided. No one expected this. It came out toward the end of it, the changes in the construction.
The state law changed, my understanding, around the first of the year, somewhere, give or take weeks. The maps were already in place before that.
Was there any thought from the committee about soliciting the help of the residents? You know, a joint effort? We're under time constraints now, obviously. I don't know that anything can be done before October. But since the time that you were notified that things have changed, the state changed it, did the committee send a letter off to state authorities?
Again, can I say it again? My understanding of the process
I'd like to talk, I'm sorry, but I'd like to talk to the committee. I'm sorry.
Well, this is the discussions at the meeting, so if you want to answer it or you want me to answer, I will.
Excuse me, I sit in that chair where those gentlemen are sitting, and I have for 30 years. I know what they go through.
I'm just trying to answer the question.
I'm a city council president, and I normally don't let our solicitor answer questions from the public unless we ask them.
Well,
Please.
first of all,
I was asked to address this residents, that's why I did it. If the committee would rather address you, they can stop me and ask me to do that.
I mean, in most cases, we rely on the expertise of the engineer and our attorney when any type of legislative statute or requirement goes into place.
Absolutely, I agree.
And
That was a personal question, not a legal question. You know, did the committee-
I will say that this committee, did not fight anything at that point, nor did any other town, because it was a statute that was passed before, as you said, blindsided before anybody really had an opportunity to really go further with it.
My question, though, Mayor, was after the fact, after they changed it, now suddenly you're dealing with a different animal through no fault of your own, absolutely. The state changed everything. After you had basically run out of time.
Well,
did you as a committee say, wait a minute, this is, something's
well,
not right?
let me just say this. The one thing that the committee did consider is that the current homeowners, the current property owners were grandfathered. Okay, so it really was a matter of, do we want to fight something for new construction when the state is requiring this? And is there science behind what's being required based on what's happened? And I'm not trying to use comparisons between Texas and Florida and everything else, but there's a substantial amount of homes that are ruined because of flood and because of issues dealing with that kind of scenario. And at some point, will the FEMA money be exhausted? And so, we were comfortable that current homeowners that are in place are okay. It's the new homeowners that might have to go along with this restriction. And, quite frankly, that might, I know you're not going to be happy with this answer, but it might make sense if it's a way of keeping the flood insurance in place.
As long as it's not your home, Mayor.
I have a home on the water somewhere. I'm doing the same thing that you're all doing.
You're going to be affected.
I agree.
If not now, you will be.
Can I just remind you, Rich, that in March and April this year, you did request that the property owners that were affected be notified?
Well, I did ask, I'm not going to, but I asked our engineer back in April, and there's minutes to prove it, to say at least reach out and let the residents know what was going on. Now, unfortunately, my engineer did not follow, my command. I'll take responsibility for not making sure that he did what he was supposed to do. But having said that, it doesn't mean that, we're not concerned about the residents, not only in Strathmere, it affects other residents that are along the Great Egg Harbor and some of the other areas in the township that are on rivers and things of that. So, I'm not making excuses. I'm just telling you that we were happy, or at least we weren't happy with the new things, it's a bad word. It was that we were a little bit less concerned because the current residents that are homeowners now are grandfathered.
Well, I can only say, and it's not you, Mayor, the signs. Been there since 1968. I've never seen a 3-foot wave come across the aisle, for what it's worth. But I thank you for your time.
Anyone else?
Dave Townsend, 14 South Bayview in Strathmere. I just want to clarify, or have clarified, if you have damage to the property you have now, we have a hurricane, my house burns down, I want to rebuild my house or repair my house, am I allowed to repair it the way it is now, or do I have to follow the new codes?
Do you mind if
I don't
answer?
know, I'm just throwing it out there. Somebody answer my question, please.
Would you mind if I answer?
Oh, yeah, okay.
I'm just being facetious, I'm sorry.
Okay.
40%, I believe, is what we have. 40%. We get credit depending upon when that scale tips in our ordinance. If you did it 50%, you get higher flood insurance premiums throughout the town. You do 60%, you get higher flood insurance premiums throughout the town. We wanted to lower your flood insurance premiums for everyone, so it's one of the things we did to get credit for it was bringing the threshold at 40%. So if the cost of the reconstruction is 40% or more of the value of your property, then yeah, you're going to have to build to the current standards.
Okay. And the other question I have is, I think Dr. Farrell mentioned that this had to be done as a community. Is it possible to take individual properties and have that looked at and get that out of the
I think
coastal A?
it's the other way around, but I'll let Dr. Farrell answer it.
Is it possible to have individual properties go for a letter of revision?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I say that because I just built a house that's 10 feet bulkhead, 10 foot above, so it's a little different than a lot of the other houses in town.
Well, a 10-foot bulkhead certainly would be a requirement since it's, a foot higher than the flood elevation. So 60 feet out of about 1,000 feet tall, yeah, about 1,000 feet total of the frontage is involved in this coastal A zone. I can tell you from my experience, which is about 5 different cases in the last 2 years, that FEMA's rather loath to spot zone. In other words, make a spot exception for your property. Meanwhile, next door to you is a house with an elevation of 6. Or in some cases, well, there's some with no bulkheads, correct? Yes. So if you have a property next to you with no bulkheads, you have a 10-foot bulkhead, they feel that the damage can accrue to your property in any event, depending on the wind and wave rates. If the bulkhead will stop it, come straight in, or a slight angle, you're good to go. It's coming in at 45 degrees, there's a problem. So, that said, it's still your right to file a letter of non-provision with FEMA. On their website, it can be found, it's about a 4-page document to fill in, and then you have to justify it with some sort of, you have to provide your engineering plans for the bulkhead estimate.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Sean Montgomery, 808 Bayview. I just have a quick question. The members of the community strategy got together, and we had an opportunity to take a look at some of the maps, and I must have completely looked at them incorrectly because I couldn't see where any of the bayside properties for either Sea Isle or Ocean City fell into the new basin. And
I haven't looked, can I answer?
yeah, please.
All right. I haven't looked at Cialis, but I know for a fact, because that's where my practice is, and talking to the municipal people in Ocean City, that those 3 areas I told you were accurate, and from directly to the city solicitor, not just for upper portion, but also my private practice, they have a couple hundred properties that are going from A to coastal A. And did I go out and count properties? No. It's taking the information from the city itself. And that's from basically not just the city, also the Board of Realtors, who I represent, who was very concerned, just like you folks are.
So I don't know what the percentage of homes that is on the valley for either Ocean City or Sea Isle versus what looks to be 100% of all the homes in Strathmere that have fallen into that new zone. So I'm just curious, is there that much of a difference in the bulkheads that have been built in Strathmere compared to the other towns?
Yes. Ocean City has had a bulkhead ordinance for quite some time. After Superstorm Sandy, we reviewed it, and we've only had ours a little over a year. Paul?
Maybe 2.
And there's also a lot of properties back there that don't have bulkheads, right?
Three properties that don't have bulkheads.
In Strathmere?
Yes. And our ordinance, you can change the ordinance, and that could be something we could look at, but our ordinance doesn't require a new bulkhead unless yours starts to deteriorate or you're substantially reconstructing your property. And that is a problem back in that area, that's frankly.
And do you know, does it take just one home along the coast to have no bulkhead or a low bulkhead that would cause the entire...
That's out of my pay grade.
I can't address that directly because I've never dealt with that particular issue. Most of the other situations, the one that we talked about down Avalon Manor, it was a new bulkhead on the piece of property that was going to be subdivided. And the subdivision was going to put these people in they were going to be D-zone properties, the way FEMA mapped it. Well, FEMA didn't know that the bulkhead had been built in 2012. It happened in 2008. And so we provided the as-built elevation, photographs, both aerial and ground, and they said, oh, okay, it was one bulkhead the entire length of the property they approved. The other case was a situation where there were 3 bulkheads at 6.5, the rest were at 7, or 7.3, 7.4, and they did agree to move that on that case, and that was in a long time. So there's not terribly many of these cases, but I know they exist, and they exist in other states, because it's similar problems everyone is facing in terms of the construction mandate. If it's done at a local level or a state level, it supersedes. I mean, you can one of these zones. State of New Jersey has insisted on foot freeboard in all the zones. That's an option you can exercise. You can go over 2 feet if they wanted to. But FEMA says that's the base flood elevation. Your first habitable floor must be above that base flood elevation. That's it. That's all they say about it. What you do locally is a local option.
How do we determine which bulkheads are going to be in compliance with the requirements versus those that don't?
They were surveyed.
Several bulkheads were surveyed. I can't find my copy of that map. I'm waiting for the engineer to prepare that map to look at me, to email me that copy. I talked to him this afternoon. So I'm just waiting to get a copy of the map so that I can look it over with him and Dr. Farrell, and we can address those issues. I would note that on the southern part of Strathmere on the bay, the flood elevation is actually elevation 10, so the bulkhead would have to be at elevation 8 to have the 2 foot or less.
And you said several, how many bulkheads were looked at?
They looked at the good portion of the stretch. I don't remember the exact limits, and I don't remember, but I know they had shots on most of the bulkhead portion of Strathmere.
So then they did look at it on a property by property value?
They didn't get all of them, but they got enough that, you know, we can have a discussion to know what kind of shape the bulkhead is in overall.
So what do we need to do to determine whether or not our individual bulkheads would meet the requirements?
If you have a survey that has, problem is most of the property surveys you get don't get the elevations on top of the bulkhead. So knowing what those elevations at the top of the bulkhead is going to be the first information we're going to need to know.
And then just, do you know how we go about getting that?
Yeah, a surveyor to go out there and calculate the measurement and provide that with you.
Dr. Farrell, is there anything we need to do as a township to assist any of the residents that want to appeal the process?
Well, there is nothing, and it's the letter of map revision is from the interested parties, either the property owner's representative, or in this case of a municipality, the municipal entity itself. So it depends on the interested party. Now, if you want, I don't suspect there's any problem with the township being providing a letter of interest or somehow in this process. I don't know how that would work. I've done 2 Lomars in my career. One for Brigantine, which was a moot point because Hurricane Sandy came along in the middle of it and they changed the maps. So the issue went away. And the other one was a successful appeal. The one that we're going on now is down in Lower Township where they turned all of the Delaware Bayfront homes into B-zone properties. They've never been a flood hazard area ever in the past. Now they're B-zone properties, and we're trying to figure out how to get out of that one. So that was about 200 homes that are built on block foundations, but they're at elevation 16. You know, the flood zone is at 9, but it's primary frontal dune, and so that's the rule with FEMA. No exceptions that they will make. We talked about going to what's called the scientific review panel. They have this scientific review panel. One of the guys I know from long ago is a member of the scientific review panel. He said, don't do it. We never find against FEMA. So I told the township committee in Lower, let's go with the Army Corps version of solving the problem directly with a beach fill, and hopefully they'll accept that as the new primary frontal dune when built. We got to 2022 to get it done.
Okay. Anyone else?
Michael Aziz, I'm at 5 Seaview Road. I'm up on the north end, but I've been in Strathmere since 1982. Any flooding that's occurred on Seaview, except for the storms maybe 4 years ago when the whole north end disappeared, has come from the back bay because there isn't adequate bulkhead on a number of properties. So I know you have a bulkhead ordinance, but it doesn't seem like there's any enforcement to it or any requirements to have a bulkhead that would protect the whole town from any flooding coming off the bay. So is there any ordinance discussion on having requirements for a certain bulkhead height so that the
We
town
do
is
have
protected
it on
from back bay?
reconstructed houses and new construction. What you're referring to, I think, is existing and requiring them to upgrade. Or if you don't have one, requiring them to put it in.
Yeah, you have
That
properties
has
there.
not been before the Township Committee. Frankly, I think that the inference from the ordinance that was adopted could be that they didn't want to put a hardship on existing property owners. Just like there's people in this room that don't want to lift up their houses so that they don't get water in them because of the elevations today. We didn't want to require you to put in new bulkheads. Could we? Possibly. It could be an ordinance
You know,
change.
when we had the flooding on the north end, the mayor took the position and brought in jetty rock that put in, and the residents on the north end, by the way, put in steel piling that protected our property. And it really wasn't enough. And when the mayor came in and put the jetty rock in between that and the
Here,
steel
yes.
bulkhead, that took away the flooding problem. So I look at it, you know, we, as residents on the north end, I was protecting my property, but it's also protecting the rest of the island. And I think that people on the bay have a similar responsibility. And it's up to the committee and the township to adopt an ordinance that is required from a public safety standpoint that protects us as a town. At least that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Michael. That's that's a difficult one to address because we try and balance between being fair to the existing residents and, you know, and trying at least keep in mind that we are also trying to lower your flood insurance premiums as best we can. So, you know, we try and, maybe it's wrong, but we try and, you know, placate and take care of people that are here now. So that would be a very tough call, I think, personally for me. I don't know how the other committee members feel, but there are residents that have also spent many years on their properties on the bay. And I'm not sure that, you know, that I would feel comfortable saying you need to replace your bulkhead or you need to make it up to a certain height at this point. That would be a substantial amount of investment on their behalf too, so. Not saying it couldn't be done, but we'll have to, that will be another meeting where there'll probably be another 50 people here, and rightfully so.
Well, I just think that given all the issues, that it would be something that should be discussed. And it is a hardship. It was expensive for us. It cost us $1,100 a foot to put that bulkhead in. I don't know what the costs are on the bay and what the requirements are, but maybe there's funding that could become available. You know, maybe it's not done overnight, but maybe it's done as a process so that you take out these properties a little bit at a time, and that maybe in a few years you have a level playing field as it relates to a standard bulkhead height within the town.
That's,
as it relates to flood insurance premium, then that would help everyone's flood insurance premium because you would have a standard where the town was protected from what FEMA would designate as a flood-prone area.
Just to give you an idea, the theory behind the current ordinance is akin to what you were just saying, which is if you improve your property, you have to come up to the current standards with a bulkhead. If you build a new home on it, you have to build a bulkhead. That was the theory that slowly these bulkheads would come up to the standard that they have to be at. If your bulkhead's deteriorated, you can't just put it back the way it is if it's an inferior bulkhead. You've got to bring it up to the current standards. And we do have the right, if you have a deteriorated bulkhead, to make a determination and make them put in a new bulkhead. So, and that's a process. I think we had some complaints over the summer, and I directed Paul to take a look at the ordinance that some of those bulkheads may be in that situation.
So is that bulkhead ordinance in place today?
Mm-hmm.
You know, regarding funding on this, the Economic Development Committee in the township is currently working with a consultant
who's looking ahead into what grants are coming available. Currently, the Army Corps of Engineer, who you've seen finishing up all these beach projects up and down the coast, is looking at funding a program for the next 50 years of improving the inland waterway and the bayfronts. At some point, and at this point I do not believe it is funded federally, but at some point there will be federal funds available in the form of grants for some of these improvements along the bayfront. Now, obviously, I'm not here speaking on behalf of the Corps of Engineers. I have no authority, nor do I have any, insight into where that's going. However, based on some of the information that I've received, that is one of the things that there may be grant money available for in the coming years.
Well, that would certainly be a big help.
And certainly, if that would become available, the township would pursue that aggressively.
So how do you stay on top of that effort, or is there something that we can do to encourage, like Congressman Lobiondo, to help push that through?
Your first stop may be to do a little bit of research in the Army Corps of Engineers, but on our end, through the back door, this consultant is keeping us apprised of what these grants are and when they actually become available.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? Okay, you will have a chance again when we get to the public portion of the meeting, if you come up with a question that you didn't think you wanted to ask but might eventually want to, you'll have a second chance at it a little bit later in the meeting. So thank you for all of your input. For those that addressed the committee, I hope this has helped a little bit with some understanding. And as Mr. Barr and Mr. Young had talked about, we're certainly not opposed to try and come up with and meet with some of the folks in Strathmere if you think that would be advantageous to them as well. So we can discuss that with whoever wants to take the lead and move forward with it. Having said that, we'll move on to the resolutions.
Item number...
Did you have any other reports?
Oh, yeah. All right.
Thanks for reminding me.
I just want to report, the DEP for the boat ramp project has asked us to complete an extension of time for their contract, because we were a partner with the DEP, and they got the grant from the National Wildlife Federation, Department of Interior. They need an extension of time to complete their components of their public education and monitoring of the project. And as part of that, they've asked each of the sub-grantees, which the Township of Upper is one of them, to give an extension of time on the project until March of 2018. It doesn't affect our project, obviously, our end of the program is done as far as the construction end, but the overall grant modification, they just need a concurrence from the Township to extend the overall project out to March of 2018. Talking to Barbara, we had done the previous extension through, I believe it extended it through September of 2017 for our end. They're asking for an additional 6 months to March. If we give them to extend that contract.
Paul's looking for a motion in a second so that they can sign the document saying that the township position hasn't changed.
Someone like to make that motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Let's call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Forson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Danny also wanted to report on the paving contractor completed the paving project. They did some of the actual work that we authorized of paving in Caldwell Park. They finished that up last week, and last week the contractor also finished up the rest of the corrective and punch list work. Just waiting now for the testing company to come in to do the final asphalt pouring of the project, and we'll be able to finalize that project.
Okay. Barbara?
I have nothing this evening.
All right. Mr. Coggins?
Two things, actually. First, I'd like to just commend Public Works and Committeeman Corson and Young for their efforts in getting the improvements done in Caldwell Park. It's a tremendous difference. It looks terrific. It looks like a very professionally done job, and I'm sure the residents who are using the park are going to find it quite enjoyable. Second, the Economic Development Committee will probably, I will not say probably, will be visiting the Township Committee at our first meeting in October. And what they're going to be looking for, and the committeemen will receive a letter to this effect, is some feedback on their presentation. The things that the committee have come up with that they feel are most important of all of the talking points that Jim Rotella presented at the last meeting, or the prior meeting to that, were the town center development in Marmora, the bike and pedestrian improvements in coordination with the county, a full interchange at the intersection of Garden State Parkway, exit 20 and Route 50, Seaville Town Center development, which kind of dovetails into that, and also some wayfinding signage and branding for Upper Township as a destination. So if I could ask my fellow committee members to keep some of those points in mind and perhaps think of what your feedback will be for this first meeting in October. That's all I have.
Mr. Young?
Yes, I'd also thank Kurt for jumping on board with me with Caldwell Park.
No problem. It turned out nice, and it couldn't have been done without our township employees.
Our
who did a
township
great job.
employees did a phenomenal job on this. It's something I've been looking forward to since the early 80s, to get the front of this thing taken care of and dress it up. The only other thing we really have is the Pumpkin Run Fall Fest. We're still moving forward with that. That'll be November the 4th. We'll have a meeting Wednesday night here at 7 o'clock to finalize display areas and different things like that. We've had a great, I think, reception and from outside the area on radio station for people who are complimenting us, and also in the newspaper for picking this up as basically a Cape Atlantic event. And keeping this going. We are looking for volunteers of every aspect for parking cars, collecting money, whatever it is. We'll have a meeting probably in about 2 weeks for any volunteers that want to come in so we can get that organized. And other than that, we're finally playing some games at nighttime. Got Amanda's Field. I happened to stop out Sunday night, and it seemed good to have the lights on and see teams out there playing. We still have a substantial amount of work out there to do with grading, seeding, and different things, but we are definitely moving forward in the right direction now. So hopefully with Caldwell Park looking the way it does will give us a push to get Amanda's Field to look that good also. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Barr?
All right, looks like we got the recycling going with the...
Yes, sir. Yep, commercial dumpsters are
Commercial
being
dumpsters?
placed down, and they will continue.
Okay, and then I know it may be a little bit off, but leaf collection is going to be starting. And I know there were some suggestions made last year, came from John with the signs. I don't know if you were ever briefed on that by your people over there, but there was a suggestion made by John that prior to going into those areas, using probably Curtis's campaign signs, what's left over after campaign.
He said jokingly, right?
To notify people of when their area is going to be collected. So I think that was a pretty good suggestion. Where'd you get that, John?
Actually, I saw it done in Deptford Township.
Yeah. So, in addition to our
Like advanced
website,
warning.
there's yard signs out there on corners letting people know that we're going to be in the area.
Yeah, they put them out a week before. Leaf collection in this zone next week.
And not to beat a horse here, but yeah, it was the men and women of the Public Works Department did a great job out there. And the park really looks good, so yes. Desperately needed that parking lot to get repaved. That's all I have.
Mr. Corson?
This time I have nothing, Mr. Mayor.
So the only thing I have, Paul, I want to ask a question. Where are we at with the remediation process with the old municipal building?
With the asbestos. Spoke with the consultant last week. He's hoping to have the specifications to us by the end of this week or the early part of next week. He did go out and do some additional testing when they did their initial visit out there. If you remember, part of the remediation was for the ceiling tiles out there. The first consultant tested it and recommended, to remove the tiles. They got out there and looked at it, and they felt that they should do some additional testing of the tiles, and they could better match exactly which ones needed to be removed and save some of the remediation costs, because that was going to be some of the most expensive portions to remove. They did do that, and they estimated that they could cut out almost 30% of the tiles that don't need to be removed as far as containing asbestos. So they hope to have that plans and specifications to us at the end of this week, early part of next week, and then we'll be able to go out to bid for that project.
Okay.
Do you have a rough time frame as far as with the bid process?
Well, once we have their plans and specifications, we'll have to circulate them, to make sure that they meet our bidding requirements, and then it'll just be a matter of, the normal bidding process is a minimum of 10 days. A project like that, I'm probably going to ask, that consultant if they recommend maybe a little bit longer of the bidding period to make sure that, we can canvass and make sure that they have enough time.
You think within 45 days we'll be having direction on where we're going with this?
I'll know for the committee meeting whether or not, when the timeframe of when the bids.
I mean, as far as putting the bids out and everything else?
Yeah, that's what, by the next committee meeting, I'll be able to report to committee as far as exactly when the bid, advertising date and bid due date will be. Because I'll have that to be able to, I think by then, have circulated through staff to do the review.
And while we're on that kind of subject, the environmental review on the building up by Sunset, does anybody know where we are with that?
The county is, I don't know, the county, I can reach out to the county that they are hiring the environmental consultant to do the phase 1 assessment. The letter did go to the county, for our concurrence saying, that we're still interested in the building, and we're just, and before we would ultimately sign the agreement, that we wanted to see the results of the phase 1 investigation, so I can find out and talk to the county planning department to see if that's in order.
Okay. So there's not any other government reports. Would you now go to the resolutions, Barbara?
Yes, sir. Item number 3, honoring ShopRite Partners in Caring and Marmora ShopRite Associates for their fight against hunger.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Colombo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 4, authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to sign renewal agreements with Horizon Blue Cross and Blue Shield of New Jersey for medical and prescription insurance.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Colombo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 5, appointing Carol Marcolongo as a part-time employee in the office of the municipal court.
Move the resolution. Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Colombo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 6, appointing an official to bid at the tax sale scheduled for October 3rd, 2017.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Colombo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 7, cancel municipal tax lien on block 683, lot 7.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Just so you're aware, this is the property formerly owned by Hartines that the township now owns out by the parking lot at Beasley Point Beach.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the little one there with the Harbor Road, right?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
We've been working on that for that.
Item number 8, certification of costs for abatement of nuisance on Block 653.01, Lot 4.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes. I'm sorry,
Mr.
I'm
Young?
trying to read here and getting myself
Yes.
confused with myself.
Mayor Palumbo? Yes. Mr. Young?
It is hard to keep up, right?
No, I'm
Number
swim
nine.
myself here. I'm just-
Appointing Louis M. Velasco, certified tax assessor, to act as tax assessor for matters in which the regular tax assessor may have a conflict of interest.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. And then I'm going to skip over item number 10. Item number 11, authorizing the mayor and township clerk to sign a contract with Shore Animal Control Services for animal control services in Upper Township.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 12, authorizing a contract with Atlantic Investigations LLC for an alcohol and controlled substances training and testing program.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 13, authorizing the purchase of a recycling collection equipment and parts, and for the chief financial officer to withdraw funds in the amount of $27,402 from the account entitled Recycling Trust Account for such purposes.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 14, under ordinances. Public hearing and final adoption of ordinance number 11, 2017, and ordinance amending ordinance number 17, 2016, known as the salary ordinance for the calendar year 2017. Public hearing.
Okay, so I will now open it up to the public. Would anyone like to address the Township Committee on ordinance 11, 2017, known as the salary ordinance? And these salary ordinances are basically for our code enforcement individuals. Okay, seeing that there's no public comment, I'll close the public portion of comment and entertain a motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
The motion is carried. Item number 15, public hearing and final adoption of ordinance number 12, 2017, and ordinance amending Chapter 26 of the revised general ordinances of the Township of Upper, which established requirements for the use of township facilities.
So I'll open it up to the public. Would anyone like to address the Township Committee on ordinance 12, 2017? All right, seeing that there's no public comment, I'll close the public comment portion and entertain a motion for adoption.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. And now we'll move back to item number 10, under the resolutions authorizing the Upper Township Fall Fest and Pumpkin Run Car Show to be held on November 4th, 2017 at Amanda's Field, and setting the admission, vendor, and participant fees.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 16, under new business, the assessment report of fire districts.
This is
Do we need
best
to
practices.
take a motion to accept this as a document?
Well, I don't know if there's any
It
discussion.
has to be publicly discussed first to comply with our best practices. As you know, a couple of the committee members, Curtis and John and I met with the fire companies. Scott was involved with quite a few of the meetings as well. Just met with the fire companies to see how they're doing, how their budget process is, how their audits are, how their membership is, and basically they're doing well. We have some of the fire companies reporting that they take their line item by line item and go through to see where they can find some cost savings. Other fire companies are reporting on how they use surplus, how they acquire new equipment, go through their bidding process. If anyone, John or Curtis wants to add anything, or if anyone has any questions about them, about the meetings.
From what I saw, our companies are using proper auditing procedures. They're using third-party accountants to make sure that their books are well kept, and they seem to be very consistent in sticking to a program. They've also all indicated that they've got a number of safeguards in place for any of their operations that involve cash donations in terms of how they're counting money, how they're making deposits. Oftentimes there's either a number of signatures, being 3 or more, that have to be attached to the count and the deposits, and also multiple people who carry the deposit to the bank at the same time. So it seems to be a very well-managed procedure.
As well as their purchasing process, they have
Correct.
a number of signatures required and go through a proper purchasing procedure as well.
I don't have anything yet. Met with all the companies, very nice. Very thorough.
So best practice requires that we publicly discuss it, which we have. The report will be part of the minutes, and then I anticipate at our next meeting to have the best practice questionnaire before you.
So would you like us to make a motion to
Accept the
accept the report?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the report of the fire company.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggan?
Yes.
Mr. Whitson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 17, request for a property tax payment plan, Block 573, Lot 13.
I think probably I should address this and explain the background on it for the committee. The tax collector had received a request from a property owner whose taxes are delinquent to pay them over to pay delinquency over a 5-year period. The statute allows, in your discretion, to permit that. It's been some years since we granted anyone that approval. When you did it in the past, it was revenue neutral to the Township Committee, such that they had to pay their current taxes, and they have to, over the 5-year period, pay not just the past due taxes, but the interest rate at the rate we would have gotten had we sold a certificate. And if they default more than 30 days late, that the taxes will, the agreement's terminated and it'll go to tax sale. The reasons given, it was in the documentation provided to you. It was a health issue where the person couldn't work. We would have to bring it back with a resolution and an agreement. It's on your agenda to give us direction as to whether or not I should prepare an appropriate agreement and resolution in the clerk's office as
Has
well.
this person seen this proposal and is accepted it?
They know because it's statutory. They've asked for what the statute allows, which is the 5 years.
And they will be able to make the payments and keep taxes?
That I don't know. If they don't, it goes to tax sale. That's going to tax sale if you don't give the agreement also.
Yeah.
Well, this request was based on a medical injury. and a rehabilitation that took longer than anticipated. We have done it in the past.
Oh, no. They know what the deal is.
You know, I think that the township is protected by the requirement that they keep up with the taxes as they're required, you know, on the quarterly basis going forward. So, anybody have any opposition to this?
I can't think of a good reason not to accept the plan.
Okay, so would you draft a resolution for the next meeting?
Move on to the next agenda.
Would someone like to make a motion to pay the bills?
I hereby move that all claims submitted for payment at this meeting be approved and then incorporated into the full minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
There are a number of reports from the municipal departments, the clerk's office, construction, division of EMS, finance, municipal court, tax collector. These will all be available upon request tomorrow at the township clerk's office, but I'll make a motion to accept these reports.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
So we've reached the second public portion of the meeting today. Would anyone else like to address the township committee?
Thanks, Mr. President. I'm just trying to understand the implications of this coastal way. Who's affected again? Anybody on the bay that is against the V zone, which would be the bay? Is that it?
The coastal A zone is usually fairly narrow sliver between the landward limit of the V zone as defined, where the peak area ends.
Well, I mean, that's the bay right now.
Well, it is in the back, the V zone is in the back.
Okay.
Then, if there is a coastal A zone, it's defined sometimes right along that V zone boundary. So there is a zero width coastal A zone. A little diamond. Looking at that freaking list of shit. On a black line.
Okay.
So if that black line lies along the pink boundary of the end of the V zone, there's a zone that has zero width.
Okay.
That means both the 3-foot wave and the 1.5-foot highway stop there. So there is an immediate transition from the V zone to a standard stillwater flood A zone.
3114?
Now, if their determination is that the 1.5 wave will propagate further inland, then they draw that line somewhere landward of the V zone boundary, and that width becomes the coastal A zone.
Okay.
Now, in Strathmere, most of the coastal A zone coming from the west, V zone ends at basically the bulkheads.
All right.
The coastal A zone continues one house inland to the street.
So it doesn't cross Bayview Drive? All the houses on the west side of Bayview?
On the land side, on the inner island side, they're in the regular standing water A zone.
So it's everybody from the point all the way down to the boat?
It starts at the Duville, and it goes down as far as the houses do, and then goes in across the salt marsh. And one of the big problems is the township faces, what do you do about the RV park? There's just marsh out there, there's no barrier of any kind. And that's what, 1,000 feet long or 800 feet long, something like that. And there's no bulkhead there. Any flooding is going to come in.
So that's it then?
Well, that's in.
Okay, how about the last street?
There's the last street before you go into CI.
No, I don't mean that. I mean from the end of Bayview Drive where you go to Ocean Drive, where the trailer park is, where those houses.
Yeah, Prescott's not in.
Okay.
Yeah. And then on the ocean side, north of Taylor Avenue, there are 3 or 4 homes on the ocean side that are in the coastal A zone. Now, that coastal A zone was developed when the dune and beach were pre-Beachville in 2016. So whatever was there in 2016
there's still a geotube under all that too that we were supposed to get out of there years ago.
Well, that's on well page stuff, that's where.
But there's geotube in front of them houses. I think.
Not on the west side, but not on the east side. The last 5 houses on the east side of Powell don't have the geotube.
Right.
We didn't get it?
It stops at the CL border. No, the geotube comes into Strathmere probably. Does?
Yeah.
A couple hundred feet in.
I thought we put some geotube up in there. We talked about it.
We did.
Well, we had those.
I remember when it was put in, and I thought it ended at First Avenue, but it didn't carry into the.
Yeah, there's a little bit.
Well, it's still there according to them.
Yeah. Hopefully we never see it again.
Go ahead.
The other thing I was trying to go through in my head was how the impact this would have on people. Say we have a storm and a house along Bayview Drive gets substantially damaged. Say that, the property might be worth $700,000, that the value of the house is $100,000, just for argument. So if he has more than $40,000 damage to the house, he then not only has to change the house to the new standards, he would have to, he would have to upgrade the bulkhead as well.
Yes.
Under our rules.
I mean, that's one scenario. I'm just trying to understand the scenarios of what could happen to people.
It's really no different than there was a resident on Prescott Avenue that had his building permit in the construction office before Sandy. He had to, then after Sandy came, he had, because the advisory flood maps came out, he had to change his whole foundation plan and raise it an additional 2 feet higher to comply with the new advisory maps that came out at that time.
But he couldn't have block or pilasters, he would have to have pilasters.
No, he was still in the maze and.
No, I mean, this coastal A would now have to be.
Well,
pilasters.
correct, he has to have pylons, which all the houses that front along the bay,
They have pylons.
they have pylons. So the only true difference is, instead of being able, having the option to use block wall, you can use a breakaway wall, which in most cases, a breakaway wall, the only difference is in say 10 feet, instead of using 12 nails, you use 3 nails to secure the wall to the building.
I mean, I guess I haven't come to terms yet with what are the implications of these affect, or are they bad or not?
It's all in the eye of the beholder, Ted. It's what the real estate community is trying to figure out. I can tell you, and I hope you don't mind me answering the question, but I can tell you from experience in talking to developers, they are programmed to say, B-zone, I don't want to deal with it. But when you really push them to it, it's a $10,000 to $20,000 difference in cost, max. And depending upon how they build the house, you wouldn't be able to tell it's a B-zone house.
Okay.
Fair enough, Paul?
That's really accurate.
I guess the only thing.
It's not as bad as it sounds, I guess is what I'm saying.
Like,
But I couldn't say that in front of.
If I lived on the bay and it came through and I not only had to raise and change the whole design of my house and put in a bulkhead, I mean, that would be devastating to me. I wouldn't be able to afford it, so probably some people can, probably some people can't.
That's the issue, but that's the same issue if you are even not if you're in the A zone, and you have an old house that gets destroyed, not in the coastal A, you're going to have the same issue because you're going to have to meet the standards. That $10,000, $20,000 difference isn't going to make any difference as to whether or not you can do it. And if you're on the bay, you got to maintain your bulkhead. I mean, you have to.
If you were
it's part of living on the bay.
If you were unlimited money and you were building an oceanfront or bayfront home, wouldn't you want to build it to the best standard you could to protect your investment?
Yeah, but I'm trying to look at what are all the implications to people. And to be quite honest, this one kind of caught me by surprise. We've been through so many of these phases over years after Sandy. You kind of thought it all settled down, and now here it is. Here it is again. So it's like trying to determine the real implications to people.
And it's probably going to get triggered again with what's happening in Florida and Texas. which,
Anyone else?
Hi there, I'm Daniel Lee, I'm in Stratford. I wanted to talk about rumble strips on Commonwealth Avenue and about Commonwealth Avenue more broadly. First, thanks for apparently having voted to express your opposition to the county's plan to install rumble strips on Commonwealth Avenue. Before I get too extensively into it, I have a question, which is, do you or the engineer have any idea how much weight the county intends to put on municipalities and institutions about these rumble strips on roads and towns?
Well, I mean, it's our understanding, and I'll have Paul jump in, it's our understanding that federal funding is tied to the requirement to utilize those rumble strips. And obviously, the county certainly needs federal funds because there's a lot of roads that have to be repaired. And so that's one of the reasons why we're going forward with it. But we thought that we'd be able to make some recommendations that we're not saying we're opposed to it, because we do know that it does prevent accidents, but in certain streets where speed limit is at a higher rate, it makes probably a lot more sense than in an area where speed limit is much lower. But
I mean, I think that because they're going to use, the county's going to utilize the various municipalities' endorsement letters as part of the endorsement of their proposal. I got to feel that they're not going to be able to send something to the federal government to ask for grant funding for a town that doesn't want something. I'm not saying that they may not override it and want to do it because of, they feel that there is a safety concern, but I think it's going to be a little more difficult for them to include an application for federal grant funding, because they're not going to do it without the grant funding. That's how they're going to pay for it. It's through the federal grant funding. So I would think it's going to be difficult, but when you read some of the comments that the county engineer and pre-public records were made regarding it, they're in favor of the rumble strips and feel that there is a very good safety.
Yeah. Well, I guess I would just let you know that I did call, I reached out to the county engineer. I did not hear back from him. And I had a conversation with his assistant or his secretary to try to express to sort of gauge how much mobilization we're going to have to do if we intend to oppose these rumble strips on Commonwealth Avenue. The sense that I got was pretty unequivocal from this person. Again, I don't know if she speaks for her, but the posture the county intended to take from her standpoint was adversarial, and that they believe these rumble strips are, great in every instance. So I wanted to ask you if there was anything that you could do more forceful in a resolution or something to articulate opposition specifically on Commonwealth Avenue, and I can tell you why I think it's important for you to do that, if you just give me a second. And I want to say that I completely understand that rumble strips have a place and can make a positive contribution to traffic safety. Seattle Boulevard is a perfect example of that. I mean, it's a treacherous road where they narrowed it, and the rumble strips in the middle certainly give you at least the sense that it's a little bit safer. But on Commonwealth Avenue, I don't know how familiar you all are, with Commonwealth Avenue. We've lived there for 6 years now. The pedestrian traffic there has increased exponentially year on year. And basically, you've got on any given summer day, and I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of bikers, runners, walkers, and you've got multitudes of people parking in gridlock form on two shoulders with children, and their beach supplies to get on the beach. The notion of installing a rumble strip in the middle of that to essentially keep people into their lanes is absolutely absurd. I don't think you could devise a worse location to install a rumble strip. Not only will you create constant unbearable noise pollution for the occupants of the homes that sit maximum 30 feet away, decreasing their quality of life, as well as their home values, but you're also going to make the road significantly less safe. The point of a rumble strip, after all, is to keep a person in their lane of travel. If you've got, you know how wide that road is. If you've got bikers, pedestrians, and beachgoers in the road, and then a person's driving on the road, and they have to swerve. They have two choices: they can run into them, or they can swerve impact of Strathmere's, life. But you're going to discourage people from getting out of the way of hitting someone, and some of them, I think, are likely to swerve back because that's what rumble strips are devised to do. So I think it's obvious this is not a location for them. And I guess I just want to say that what's going on Commonwealth Avenue is gotten really bad over the years. We've watched, I can't even tell you, dozens of near misses of cars striking pedestrians on that road. Something has to be done, and we're all in favor of that. Putting rumble strips on that road is the absolute stupidest idea you could do. First of all, you should lower the speed limit. And I know this is a county road, but I think that you all have a real stake in this. The speed limit is way too high on that road. 35 in the middle of the summer, which I know is downgraded from 40 in the winter, is absurd. You've got thousands of people, gridlocked cars, and you've got a speed limit of 35. I mean, thank God most people can't even get over 20, so, they have the good sense. But you get every batch, you've got some idiots, and they'll go and press up against 40 and narrowly miss hitting people. And so you should lower the speed limit. You should also, as has been talked about, put in a bike lane or some kind of pedestrian lane there that enables this exploding population of pedestrians to safely utilize that road. And so, I just feel like, and I guess the one other thing I'd say is that it's one of the very few year-round people who live on that road. Keeping the speed limit lowered year-round would be really awesome, because the majority of the traffic in the off-season is heavy industrial, commercial vehicles and machinery that barrel down that road at 40, 45, 50. As you know, there's really no police there, 55 sometimes, and it sounds like their house is going to fall over. So I just think that, as I said, this road is a problem, and sooner or later there have been pedestrians hit there before. As you well know, traffic safety is unequivocal that lowering the speed limit always not only reduces the number of pedestrian versus car accidents, but almost, in orders of huge numbers, reduces the fatalities of those collisions. So I just don't understand, why this has gotten to this point. And I would just strongly encourage you to come. You can come sit on my deck and watch it anytime you like, and I think you'll be appalled and frankly frightened by, what's going to be an inevitable tragedy there. So.
Well, let me just say this. We've passed a letter or resolution, right, to go.
You mean we did a couple. I think we might have asked at one point to lower the speed limit. I don't know if it resulted in the 35 or not. It may behoove Paul to take a look at that one section, says maybe if we would ask them to lower that.
I think we asked them to lower it in the trailer park, because south of the trailer park, it didn't meet the criteria.
Yeah.
And that may be looked upon more kindly than just the entire length.
Yeah.
And then secondly, you did pass the general resolution on rumble strips, but this is a specific issue.
We didn't do a resolution. I didn't think we did. I drafted
A letter for the speed?
50 miles an hour above.
For the rumble strips, okay. It wasn't a resolution, but the bottom line is this is a special case, I think.
And honestly, it's comparable to the same situation that we have where many folks on Stagecoach have, and this is going way back when I first got on the Township Committee. At one time, we had a 25-mile-an-hour speed zone there. And by the state troopers, they weren't able to enforce it because it was supposed to be a 35-mile-an-hour because it's considered a county rural road.
Well, this is the gridlock and the pedestrian traffic on that road rivals a city, any major American city, at the height of its rush hour. This is not a rural road. This has become, and it's very interesting. I think that as the homes that have gotten nicer, the clientele of the people has gotten a little richer, and they're more encouraged to want to exercise and utilize a space. And there is nowhere, as you know, there's no boardwalk there. There's nowhere for them to exercise. And so that's my unscientific reason for why the pedestrian traffic has increased so significantly. You've got, and when you have both shoulders gridlocked with cars from beachgoers, those bicyclists and those runners are in the lane of travel. They're not on the shoulder. So I get the Stagecoach comparison too there about the speed limit, but this road is utilized by pedestrians unlike any road that I can think of in the township. So, I mean, as I said, this has gotten very dangerous over there, and there will be, there will be an incident. There already have, but there's going to be an incident. So, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Oh, and I guess, so can you articulate some sort of more formal opposition to this rumble strip? Is this something you're inclined to consider?
I think we've already voiced opposition, but we could put it in a resolution form, I think, couldn't we?
Well, that's what we were just saying here. We did it in a letter. I mean, you could do it as a resolution, but, I mean, if I don't mean to be repetitive, but his issues are a little different with the speed and the congestion.
I mean, lowering the speed there wouldn't be a bad thing. I think we asked to lower the speed in the trailer park north because it met criteria for houses per square foot.
Well, the proximity to the homes, Eric was saying, I'm down that way quite a bit. I know Rich is and Ed is.
I'm there every
and most
weekend.
of us. The noise is going to be unbelievable if those rumble strips going on that street.
And this is, I mean, keep in mind, it's not just people living there, people rent their houses.
Oh, yeah.
This is part of an economy. You go rent a house,
I've always said,
and you hear this, you'll never come back,
if you need rumble strips at 35 miles an hour to keep people in their lane, there's a bigger problem. When it's higher speeds, I understand it, but at 35, there just should be, I'd rather see it be no passing on these roads, and that way if somebody's doing 35, they're not going to pass. And it's not a problem with no passing zones, because if somebody does fade over, that's what they're really designed for. But in a passing zone, especially like on Stagecoach, some of the Commonwealth that's passing, the noise is going to be phenomenal.
We were taking pictures the other day and videos. It's constant. You have no choice. You leave your lane of travel and you rely with a person. So you're going to be on a rumble strip more times than not on that road. The entire length of that road, you'll be traveling the rumble strip. And I'll sell my house. I mean, it's like, you can't. How could you live there? But no one will buy it.
We will work, just to be clear, we're on your side here, okay? We don't have the authority to, first of all, to change the speed limit. That's not our jurisdiction.
Right.
So, we try and go through the process and try and do the best we can in asking and hoping that, and for the most part, they'll agree. Sometimes they have and sometimes they haven't. But, we are on this, you're preaching to the choir, basically, because what you're saying, we've had basically the same conversation, I think it was 2 meetings ago. And so, I don't want you to be frustrated that we're not going to do anything. We're trying to do it.
Yeah. I was just shocked, frankly, when I made that. I mean, and obviously I haven't spoken to the county engineer. I'm assuming the township engineer would have better luck to reach him, but I was very disturbed by, the posture that, it seems to be that the office is going to take. This has turned into a NIMBY issue, and it's about traffic safety, and it's just people whining because they don't want to be disturbed, and again, you can make that of what you want, given that this is some of the nicest real estate, or I wouldn't say nicest, but most expensive real estate in town. But on top of that, you're going to significantly decrease the safety of the road, which
I would suggest you reach out to your freeholders.
Yeah.
And voice your concerns to them.
Yeah.
But we will continue the process and take what you're saying,
And the bike path issue, I know that had come up years ago, and it seemed like it just kind of died. Is that something you all have?
Bike path on Commonwealth?
Yeah.
I don't think there's one road.
Yeah, I mean,
There was a push from CL for a period of time that they wanted to have parking only on one side of Commonwealth and create a bike lane. And we did get some pushback during when we had funding for our beach bills that they, tying some of our need to have public parking for the access to the beach and not reducing the number of parking spaces. That was the issue.
Yeah.
Balancing between public parking and
Yeah, you couldn't make one side of Commonwealth Avenue no parking, that'd be horrible. Because then you
Yeah,
know where to
I get
park.
that. I mean, like I said though, that's more of the point. got, traffic, you've got the cars parked there, nose to bumper the whole way, so you've got nowhere, no other way up. So, anyway, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Up on the beach. Mountain bike,
My name is Mary Magdalene from Tuckahoe. Also the new president of the Greater Tuckahoe Area Merchants Association by default. My question is about the property next to the community center. Has there been any headway on the township acquiring that to expand the parking there?
I have made, the person that is in foreclosure,
Right.
the house has been, I think the bank has resold. The vacant lot, my understanding is still, the bank still owns the vacant lot. There's two parcels there. I've called and emailed the supervisor that is handling it, and just was refusing to return my calls or emails.
End of domain.
You want to tell me who it is and I'll call?
If you stop by the office, give me a call, Mary.
Okay. And then previously, Mr. Coggins was referring to eventually putting designation signs around the township. And I would just ask you to please remember to designate Tuckahoe as one of the areas. There's a very old sign on the southbound side of Route 50, just past the Tuckahoe River Bridge. There's a very old sign and it just says entering Upper Township. And you're obviously entering a little town that's more than just Upper Township. And Tuckahoe is kind of in the wicked stepchild of the township for a while anyway, but, I just wanted to try to make sure that Tuckahoe kind of gets recognized as being Tuckahoe. We've been there for a long time. And then the pumpkin run. I have not heard a peep about pumpkin run from anybody, even though we've been on the list since the very beginning.
We couldn't get back to anybody until we set the fees and everything else.
That was done tonight.
All right.
So now, everybody that's on the list will start hearing from the clerk's office with procedure and fees and...
Okay, and then, did I hear you mention that there's going to be a meeting on Wednesday night?
We're going to have a meeting Wednesday night here, so, it's not open, it's not a big open, but you're welcome to come to it.
Well, unfortunately, that's also the same night as our meeting.
We're going to have,
So I
this is more...
I guess you can't miss that meeting, you're the new president.
Meredith, this is going to be just really for us to, like with Scott and us, to finish putting together our OEM plans and everything else for this and figure out exactly where everything's going to go. We will have another meeting coming up, and I'll make sure that you're notified of it. And all the vendors will be notified at that meeting, because if they have input, that's the point. And I want to hear anything, from everybody of how we can make this better.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Wait a minute, you're gonna have to talk into the microphone and do it again because we're taping you.
Hi, Jason Lombardi, Strathmere. About the rumble strip conversation, how did that actually end? Can you pass a resolution specifically for certain roads, or is this kind of what?
If we pass, I'll explain to you. If we pass a resolution that supports your request or your colleague's request, it's really only a request from us because we don't have authority on that road anyway. And again, you would hope that the county would certainly take recommendations from the municipality, but sometimes that's not always the case. So, we're committed to pursuing and doing whatever we can to make the rumble strips go away, at least from the bridge up to the trailer park, or maybe even further if it's possible. But
We live in Well Beach,
so you're all the way down.
because it's my understanding Seattle City is not doing it on Landis.
They're 25.
Their speed limit is 25.
25.
So the rumble strips are only going on roads that have a speed limit above 25.
Yeah.
The easier thing is if we
It's
get the speed
35.
limit
See,
reduced,
we're trying to reduce that part of our our initial letter to the county was a recommendation to reduce the speed limit, and therefore, the rumble strips won't be required.
So
But
what,
that, again, is...
just to fully understand what happened is the county was like, yes or no, rumble strips on every road, like above 25. And basically, you say yes because you want them on like Stagecoach.
No, we don't want them on the stagecoach.
We said yes for everything over 50 miles an hour.
Over 50 miles.
That's what we're trying to get them to
Yes.
accept.
So where does it stand at this point?
We don't know, we haven't heard from them
No,
yet.
we haven't heard from them, we don't know.
All we can do is make a
I would suggest
recommendation.
your better bet is to do what you're doing tonight in front of the freeholders.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of wondering.
And perhaps you can reiterate the speed limit should be reduced in that area.
But we did write a letter, I believe, asking for speed limit reduction. Why don't we do it in a form of resolution asking for speed limit reduction?
I'm comfortable with that. We can put a resolution on
Can we
the,
put a
for next
resolution on
meeting.
our next meeting to
That'd be
reduce?
great, like all the way from like,
Yeah.
the border of Sea Isle all the way.
It's the Ocean Drive. It's busy in the summer, people need to slow down.
And wouldn't it be a beautiful thing, you just go 25 the whole way?
And guess what? If we have the speed limit to 25, there's
The
no rumble
problem
strip.
is that there are standards they use, so when there isn't any houses or very few houses, they're going to have some professional pushback on that.
That's right, that's what happens.
But the professional pushback, though, I mean, they need to take into consideration the sheer amount of parking and all that nonsense that goes on.
But what the solicitor just said is, under the state guidelines, you have to have so much residential frontage for it to be 25 miles an hour. If you didn't have those requirements, everybody would want 25 miles an hour. Do you understand what I'm saying? Just, you have wide open areas on the Ocean Drive. And it's gonna be a tough thing to try to sell, to say, hey, we want 25 miles an hour.
Oh, I would not describe it as a wide open area.
It's
From the
wide
last
open
house in
when
Sea
it
Isle
comes to December and January and February. I've lived here my whole life. They're wide open roads.
I mean,
There's no houses on them in certain areas.
I guess
Believe me, I'm all
dangerous
for it,
because there's
but
not, and
that's-
if there is someone
that's-
crossing the road and here comes a vehicle.
But that's the pushback that you're gonna get when the state
Who
tells you what
benefits
it's
from
gonna
a
be.
fast speed limit? I
What's
still
that?
can't understand that. Who benefits from a higher speed limit? Like somebody who doesn't want to go on the parkway?
Unfortunately,
Speed from
the DOT and all the different states' criteria, roads are to move people and push volume.
Yes.
So at a certain speed, you need to move volume, and that's the speed. And that's why the state criteria has for, as far as saying, you have to have a certain number of house frontage on a street in order to have the automatic or the statute to reduce the speed limit to call it that neighborhood street. And most streets don't have that qualification. You need those.
Yeah, but you have to have parking on both sides of the street.
The state criteria. The other criteria is you use the 85th percentile of what the cars are doing the speed. So the problem is it's counterintuitive. You want to lower the speed limit, but when you do the speed study on the street, all the cars are driving fast, so therefore it justifies a higher speed.
But see, if they did a speed study there July 4th weekend, no?
Absolutely. This is not a normal county road. Like, it needs a special new name. Like, this is not a normal county road. Everyone
disagree
knows
with
that. So it's kind of bizarre to apply these totally arbitrary things to a town that explodes in population for 3 months out of the year.
You're talking about cars hitting rumble strips? Hit a rumble strip with a bike.
Hit a rumble
It's
strip or
not
hit a
fun.
biker. Yeah.
So, and you see how many people are riding bikes?
It's insane. And he's right. It's weird. I don't know if it is like the clientele has changed, but everyone's got the suits on now and the helmets.
Yeah, everybody's Lance Armstrong.
Everyone's Lance Armstrong now, like non-stop. It's crazy.
At the very least, I can tell you that we will do everything we can to support what you two have presented to us tonight.
I appreciate that. I just was confused how it ended because we started talking about bike lanes and speed limits and rumble, so, okay, thank you.
But if you can go to the county freeholder meeting, I would definitely recommend you do it.
Yes. Would be great, yeah. Try and make time.
Anyone else? All right, I don't think there's anyone else here. So with that, we will close the public portion of this meeting, and I'll go to Mr. Coggins to bring us into executive session.
I hereby move that a resolution be incorporated into the minutes authorizing the Township Committee to enter into an executive session for the following matters pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. The matters are litigation, Holt versus Upper Township Zoning Board of Adjustment et al., contract negotiation with appraisal services, and personnel. I also include in my motion the estimated time and the circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public as follows. It is anticipated that the matters discussed in closed session may be disclosed to the public upon the determination of the Township Committee that the public interest will no longer be served by such confidentiality. With respect to employment and personnel matters, such discussions will be made public if and when formal action is taken or when the individuals involved consent that it can be made public. With respect to contract negotiations, such matters will be made public when negotiations have ceased and there is no longer a reason for confidentiality. With respect to litigation matters, such discussions will be made public when litigation is complete and the applicable appeal period has expired.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
The motion is carried.
Have a good evening, everyone. Please drive safely home.